Hi, welcome to Comic Talk. I'm Josh.
And I'm Drew.
And this is our monthly review for our poll list. This is for July. So we're going to jump right into this today. We're going to start out with some of our top picks from the month. And the first one we're going to talk about here is, do I get it in frame? I did. Weirdworld. This is Weirdworld number 2 that we read this month. This is by Jason Aaron and Mike Del Mundo.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely one of my top picks this month, if not the numero uno. It's pretty tight race for me this week. Let's say first off, right off the bat, we had a lot of really great picks this week.
We really did. Going through the past month, it was really hard to pick tops and bottoms in a lot of cases. But I would agree that this one is absolutely fantastic. I don't know if I liked it quite as much as the previous one, but it was still top tier by all accounts.
Mm-hmm. A lot of months, this would have been top pick. Just almost any time that I've been reading comics, if I had picked this up, I would have been like, well, that's the best comic I've read this month.
Right.
And so this was a no-brainer for me. The art in this is just incredibly beautiful. Mm-hmm. The writing is awesome. It's deep and introspective, and
that's the one thing I feel like dropped a little bit from last month.
It did a little bit,
but it's still good enough, and the art's still good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Again, top tier.
Like we discussed, you can get the entire story just from the art. Like you could just completely remove everything that Jason Aaron did. And it's still an incredible comic that I would want to read or look at, I guess. Yeah. And, the writing on here is just it's so sort of different than everything else that's coming out of Marvel right now.
It's sparse and tasteful.
Yeah, it feels like an indie comic to me, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Weirdworld, totally you should pick it up.
So, speaking of another indie comic from a non-indie company, Prez number 2. I was really impressed with this one. The first one I thought was pretty good. I would maybe give it like a 7 out of 10. This one I'd usually put in like 8, 9. I feel like the story really came together this month. It really became clear the intentions of the writers and the creative team in general. Really can't say enough good about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a funny comic. I liked it quite a bit as well. Because like I said, this was a really strong month. This isn't quite in my top echelon for the month. This is one that you pulled for your top.
Yeah.
For me, it's near the top of the middle, right? I'd give it a good strong 7.5 rating out of 10 if I had to give it some arbitrary number rating. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely worth reading, especially from DC, especially if you like satire and parody.
That's the other thing.
Comedy.
In the current climate that we're in, I really needed a political satire just for sanity's sake, and this one absolutely delivered. So if you watched the GOP debate and got incredibly depressed, go pick this up, and it'll make you feel a little bit better. Or worse, depending on how you take it.
All right, well, next up, let's talk about something that's closer to an indie book. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit while we're here. But first of all, this is Jupiter's Circle. This is an Image comic by Mark Millar and John Felice. Mm-hmm. This is a comic that I didn't know how I was going to feel about it because I'm always on the edge with Millar. We've talked about this a few times. But this one, I feel like he is hitting on every cylinder here. It's
fantastic. This is a mutual top pick for us.
Definitely.
Absolutely. I really can't say enough good about it. It's not anything like I expected. It's better in every single way that it possibly could be.
Yeah, I think this is everything right about what Image Comics has been doing. They're really letting their creators just take things and run with them with no sort of editorial heavy hand like we see with Marvel and DC. And I think we're seeing that with really the upshoot that we're seeing with Image. They're just getting more and more market share every month, it seems like. And it's books like this, I think, that are making that happen.
Definitely. And it is odd that it is the most superhero book that I've ever read.
Right.
But I think that is definitely the charm of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think if Image keeps doing this, it's not going to be much longer that we can call Image an indie comic source, because they're creeping right up really quickly with a lot of these great titles.
Yeah, I really hope it starts to trickle into the mainstream, because they really have so much going on right now that it's a pity that they're sort of the third dog in the race right now.
Right. Well, they need a cinematic universe. That's what's going to sell them.
Need a Mark Millar action figure. So this is another one of my top picks, Big Trouble in Little China 14. And I'm really happy that this is one of my top picks because 13 was absolutely not. 13 was, of course, right, the debut of the new creative team and the end of the, damn it, what's the guy's name that did the movie?
Carpenter.
Yeah, it was the end of John Carpenter's plot that he laid out for the first 12. I will say I'm still disappointed in the art, but this one actually succeeded in making me laugh multiple times out loud, whereas the previous issue I feel like tried really hard and failed really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you there. I think your critique's pretty appropriate here. The art is what's keeping it out of my top picks for the month. Again, probably a solid 7.5. It's above average comic, I think, just because there is some clever stuff happening inside here. But I didn't love it, but I certainly like it, and I'm glad we're reading it now.
Yeah.
All right, well, our last top pick of the month is going to be Airboy. Number 3, this is Robinson and Hinkle. Mm-hmm. And this is number 3 of a 4-comic run, so we get one more of these. And
sad about that.
I, too, am very sad about this. We sort of just picked up Airboy because it sounded interesting, and it was James Robinson, and I've always loved James Robinson. I think he does interesting work. And boy, am I glad we did.
Yeah, it's fantastic. This series has been consistently at the top of my list since we picked it up.
Yeah, and it from both writing and art style, it's doing some really interesting things. I want to even say innovative in almost a Vonnegut-esque sort of way. This is almost a Vonnegut comic.
I could see that. I think it would be pretty easy for one to draw parallels between this and Slaughterhouse 5 would be the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah. It's just so weird, just the way that they've written themselves into it, and really they are the stars. The creative team are the stars of this comic with Airboy in the title. And the way that they're spinning it around as we progress through and making it into an Airboy title and sort of pulling themselves back and bringing the Airboy character forward into the mix, brings the Airboy character and that cast of characters sort of alive, because it's pitting them against realistic sort of people. As debaucherous and terrible as they are, they do come off as very real as well because of that. So
yeah, and I think that's really a perfect setup for it, because Airboy is like this golden age character, and we like to think that everything golden age is just so silly and unrealistic, and I mean it really is, but I feel like this really has the balls to explore that, which I don't think any comic that I can think of has really taken on that challenge.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a great title. This and Weirdworld were easily my top picks. This one taking the crown. Airboy, number 3, must read, absolutely, for sure. If you don't hate comics, read Airboy.
The only thing is, I recommended this to a friend of mine and then repealed my recommendation, because if you're not okay with seeing gratuitously drawn penises every issue, like, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
But that's really about it.
Yeah, as long as you're okay with penis.
Yeah, and I do think it's hilarious how the artist's penis gets bigger in every issue. It seems like it gets bigger in every issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the new chin of Jack Burton.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and move on to some of our bottom picks, or just things that are sort of on the cusp that we want to talk about that maybe we didn't love, didn't enjoy quite as much as we thought we might, and sort of where we're going to go from there with these titles. So the first one on the list that we have is Wolf. This is an Ailes Cott book. There's a whole huge load of creators here, so I'm not going to go back over it. You can check out our review to hear a bit more about each of the people on the creative team. So what do you think here?
This issue is huge. There's so many pages in here, and I really was excited when it came out. I really just don't feel like they've necessarily accomplished what they set out to, at least in this issue. I really have high hopes for the next one. I think that maybe they did the giant-sized first issue the way that they did so that they can get out of the way, you know, like all the stuff that they needed to before they can really get down to the feel of the comic that they want to. But again, that being said, if issue 2 resembles issue 1, I'm really not that interested.
Yeah, I'm with you here. I think you're right. If this was half of this was issue 1, I'd already be done.
Yeah.
Even if I picked this up as issue 1 and issue 2, I'd be done. Because 2 issues of this would just be too much. But being that we powered through, 50 pages in one, I'm willing to give it one more to see where this goes now. Because this whole thing feels like a prologue. Like, in fact, the synopsis on the back of the comic is telling us about how this ends up at the end of this first issue.
Which is kind of interesting because I think we were kind of both at a loss as to what the hell just happened. And then you read the back and it's like, oh, okay.
Right. And the back sounds cool. When you read this synopsis on the back, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So if
it's
this
like, I just read that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So if this is sort of the setup to give us this synopsis in the next issue, which will be issue 2, then this could be pretty cool because the writing was good. I thought the art was pretty good.
Yeah.
The characters were cool.
Indie kind of minimalism thing to it.
Yeah. So there's a lot to like about it, but it just wasn't that gripping as an issue. So
I don't really find myself invested in any of the characters.
Right.
At all.
Yeah. So I think on this one, we're going to read issue 2 next month. And if it doesn't get our interest from there, it'll probably be on the chopping block. We'll be having another discussion about it on next month's monthly pull list review.
Good old Detective Comics. So we were in agreement that we both wanted to drop this title until this issue came out. That being said, if the next one isn't on par with this one, I'm done with it. I do really feel like they did step it up in this quite a bit. We had both of us like criticisms and things we'd like to see, and this really answered all of those, which was ironic and kind of fascinating at the same time, that maybe they were criticizing themselves for the same things that we were. That being said, they gotta be consistent from here on out.
Right. It did feel like this was the first time that this comic has sort of pulled together all these disparate elements and made it work, made it feel like they had a consistent tone and idea happening here. But like you say, if we go back to being more like the last couple of issues next month, I'm out.
Yeah.
If they can keep this tone now, if they found it and they're in their groove now and we keep like this, I'm totally in.
Yeah, totally. This issue felt like Detective Comics, whereas I would say 41 and 42 felt like B-rate Batman.
Right, Batman also. Yeah, totally. So if we get more Detective Comics and not more Batman also, we'll be good on this one. Hail Hydra #1. This is the new Remender title. And I'll have to say on many months or with many of my past poll lists, this wouldn't even be on the chopping block. This isn't great, but it's definitely a pretty interesting sort of middle-of-the-road Marvel comic. To someone who is maybe a little less or maybe a little more invested in the Marvel world, maybe a little less invested in having a wide range of comics in their pull list, I think this would make a lot of people's cut. For me personally, I like to have a lot of sort of different things, different elements, different styles of writing, and for me this just is sort of middle of the road Marvel title ABC.
Yeah, I'd give it like a 5 out of 10. I wasn't particularly impressed with anything about it really. I mean, the premise itself is kind of interesting, and the whole Secret Wars thing. There's nothing really gripping about it. There's nothing that stood out It's not, on that note, particularly awful by any means. I mean, the artwork isn't terrible, the writing isn't terrible, but it's not great.
Yeah, I think this is really going to require someone to be a fan of this specific character. If you're already into this character and you like Rick Remender, you'll probably like this because it's well written. Mm-hmm. The art's pretty cool. The character seems like an interesting person, but there's just nothing in it for me that makes me want to come back and read it. So for me, this month, this is the first book that I'm okay dropping. What do you think?
I'm not, like I said, invested in it enough to argue. I don't really care if we read the next one or not.
I don't either. So it looks like Hell Hydra is out the door.
Getting the cut.
See you later.
Runaways. Breaks my heart. Dude, you took a Brian K. Vaughan title and made it boring. What the fuck? God damn it. I mean, really.
Yeah.
And that was my big apprehension about this. I was like, how can somebody take a Brian K. Vaughan title and do it justice? And then I thought, well, maybe they'll put their own spin on it, and that'd be great. And I don't think that they're trying to paint with Brian K. Vaughan's colors, so to speak, but I don't think that their colors are interesting enough to keep me invested.
First of all, there's barely anything about this that makes it the Runaways.
Other than they run away.
They run away. It's got Molly.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, these are just what feel like random characters in sort of a random battle world. Hey, let's do a Runaways in battle world because why not sort of book. This was sort of a Hail Mary choice for us. We said, hey, why not? Let's read it.
The first two Runaway series were so great. Why not give it a shot?
Might as well give it a shot. It could be interesting. It's a good way to bring it back because it's battle world. So if it sucks, they can just drop it in a couple months. And if it's cool, it's allowed to be different because it's battle world. It's not normal continuity.
Right.
That being said, I just don't care.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's nothing about this particularly gripping. Nothing that particularly makes me feel like I need to read the next issue. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'm not going to be necessarily excited going into number 3.
Yeah, I have no reason to continue with it.
Okay, well, if you're not invested at all either, then all right. Sorry, Mobile.
Yep.
You're sucking it up this month.
2 down. All right, well, we just got one more to discuss, and that's going to be the new Suicide Squad. This is by Ryan Briones and Blonde. So this is probably my bottom choice for the month.
Really?
Yeah, I just sort of in the same way I guess you are with Runaways, just completely not invested. I just do not care what happens in this book at all. It just has not gripped me. There's been a couple of interesting things that while I was reading it, I was fine with. I didn't hate that I was reading this book. I didn't actively despise the process of having to get through the 22 pages. Mm-hmm. But if I never opened up the next one, I would not care at all.
That's fair. Being a Suicide Squad fan, and given that they just revamped the roster quite a bit. I mean, in this we get Parasite and Reverse Flash, and people that have never been in Suicide Squad before, to my knowledge. And then also the fact that Vic Sage is lurking around in the background. I'm such a fanboy for the Question that I'd have to keep reading it just to see what Vic does.
Sure.
That being said, for somebody that's not a total Question fanboy, or, I've always felt that this is the only title that Harley Quinn has ever been good in. I could understand that. I would say, invested enough that, again, I want to read the next issue. But overall, I'd give it maybe a 6 out of 10. So
okay.
far.
Like I said, I didn't hate the read. I just was really bored with it. There were a couple things I really liked. I liked Black Manta. Mm-hmm. I like that character, and I thought that he was done pretty well here.
Yeah, he's another one of the new ones, too, and I think it's very successful so far.
Yeah, and the art in regards to him was cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that alone, I'll read another one.
Ideas for replacements.
The new Brian K. Vaughan series, we mentioned that
Paper
shortly.
Girls.
Paper Girls.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely on my list. I'd like to get that in here.
For me, and I don't know, I think maybe it's not coming out until September, October, but I know that Moon Knight is getting relaunched.
Oh, I love
Jeff
Moon Knight.
Lemire is writing for it. So that's definitely on the radar when it does come out. In the meantime, I still wouldn't be opposed to adding on the Bloodshot Reborn. We don't have a Valiant title right now. Again, it's another Jeff Lemire, so I think it would be a good introduction to that universe. He seems to be their superstar writer right now, which I think is great. You know, they're keeping the man busy.
For me here, the fact that Marvel is doing this big reboot in a month again makes me a little apprehensive about adding a lot of things this month for August, because there's definitely a list of at least 3 or 4 things that I really want to read in September. So I'm okay with just dropping things and not even necessarily picking anything else up. If there's some stuff you want to pick up, I'm totally cool with that. But for me, I'm sort of in a holding pattern until we get to the following month, so we can check out Doctor Strange, which we have to read. Jason Aaron doing Doctor Strange with a battle axe.
Yeah.
Right? Come on, that looks fucking awesome.
It does look awesome. And again, Daredevil's ending in an issue. Airboy's ending in an issue.
Right.
So we're going to have some major holes to fill.
Right. And James Robinson, the writer of Airboy, is doing a couple of Marvel titles coming up in this.
Nice.
So we'll definitely want to jump onto at least one of those in a month as well. So that pretty much wraps it up for us this month on the poll list. You can check back with us on Thursday morning, Wednesday night, however you want to look at it. We'll have a review of this week's poll as it comes out. And then the following Monday morning, we'll have, are we doing the Witches?
Yeah.
Witches
trade.
Right. So we'll be checking that out. And that's Scott Snyder and Jacques. Have you started in on that yet, Drew?
I have not. But I am excited for it because I am a Scott Snyder fan. I think he's great.
Yeah, and I'm a big Jacques fan. So
there we go.
Between the two. I'm about halfway through it, and I got to say it's pretty damn cool.
Cool.
So it should be a good review. So check back with us on that one as well. And other than that, all the usual begging applies here. Give us comments and thumbs up and thumbs down and
this button.
Either of those, they're both good for us. They show that you care. You can subscribe. We got Twitter down there below. You can follow the links there. We both have random bullshit to talk about on Twitter at times. We also have our Facebook link. So click some buttons and go to some things and do some stuff, and we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.
See you.